The Netherlands just ended the immigration crisis. Is the immigration crisis really over, or has it simply taken a new form in the Netherlands? The recent developments in Dutch asylum and migration policies have raised these pressing questions as the government introduced what is being called the strictest asylum policy in the country's history. In a bold move aimed at regaining control over migration, the Dutch authorities are not only revising asylum policies, but are also requesting to opt out of the European Union's Migration and Asylum Pact. This drastic approach marks a significant shift in how the Netherlands handles asylum seekers, with implications for migrants, residents, in the European Union. The strictest asylum policy in Dutch history. The Dutch government's recent announcement to implement the strictest asylum policy ever marks a turning point in its approach to migration. With plans to opt out of the EU Pact on Migration and Asylum, the Netherlands aims to tighten the rules surrounding asylum, making the country less appealing to potential asylum seekers. This move is in response to growing public pressure and capacity constraints in asylum centers, as officials seek to alleviate the burden on local resources such as healthcare, education, and housing. The government's plan includes ending state-funded housing for rejected asylum applicants, restricting family reunification, and increasing scrutiny of asylum claims. The goal is to significantly reduce the influx of migrants, with particular emphasis on discouraging repeated asylum applications. By making the process stricter, the government hopes to prioritize genuine refugees while addressing what it perceives as abuses of the system. Opting out of the EU Migration Pact, gaining control, or isolating the nation? The request to opt out of the EU's Migration Pact is a bold statement, with Minister Marjolein Faber stating the need for the Netherlands to regain control over its asylum policies. This move suggests a desire to circumvent EU-mandated regulations in favor of stricter national policies. While opting out may provide more leeway for the government to enact the measures it sees fit, it could also place the Netherlands at odds with other EU member states who rely on coordinated migration policies. The European Commission has responded skeptically, noting that opting out of already adopted legislation is not a straightforward process. Despite the challenges, the Dutch government remains firm in its stance. State-funded housing ends for rejected asylum seekers, a drastic measure. Starting January 1, 2025, rejected asylum seekers in the Netherlands will no longer receive state-funded housing. The government has decided to cut support for those whose applications have been denied, citing the need for deportation rather than subsidized living. Since 2019, rejected asylum seekers have been receiving housing assistance in major cities like Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and Utrecht. But this will soon be the responsibility of local municipalities. Critics argue that this move will exacerbate homelessness and further marginalize vulnerable individuals. While cities like Amsterdam and Utrecht have pledged to continue emergency housing efforts, many fear that without adequate state support, these efforts will fall short. The decision to end housing payments is part of a broader strategy to make the country less attractive to migrants. But it also raises ethical questions about the treatment of individuals who have already faced significant hardships. Declaring an asylum crisis, addressing or creating problems? The Dutch government's declaration of an asylum crisis for up to 2 years has been met with mixed reactions. Officials argue that the current asylum system is overburdened, with significant strains on healthcare, housing, and education. This declaration allows the government to implement emergency measures without the immediate approval of both parliamentary chambers, potentially speeding up the process of policy reform. However, organizations like the Dutch Council for Refugees have criticized the declaration, claiming it is a politically motivated move rather than a response to a sudden surge in asylum seekers. They argue that the issues facing the asylum system are the result of long-term policy failures, not an unexpected crisis. This viewpoint suggests that the crisis is being used as a justification for implementing controversial policies that would otherwise face significant opposition. Emergency shelters and capacity issues, the struggle to accommodate asylum seekers. The capacity issue at the Ter Apel Asylum Reception Center highlights the ongoing struggle to provide adequate accommodation for asylum seekers in the Netherlands. With the center exceeding its capacity, emergency shelters have been set up, including sports halls in nearby municipalities, to provide temporary relief. However, many asylum seekers have been left sleeping in open air due to the lack of sufficient facilities. Local officials have expressed frustration with the national government, accusing it of neglecting its responsibility to provide decent accommodation. The makeshift solutions, while helpful in the short term, are not sustainable. The overcrowded conditions not only compromise the dignity of asylum seekers, but also strain local resources, further complicating the situation. Tightening naturalization requirements. A path to citizenship becomes steeper. Under the new policies, naturalization requirements will become significantly stricter, with the language proficiency level being raised to B1 and the waiting period for citizenship extended from 5 to 10 years. These changes are intended to encourage greater integration and self-reliance among migrants, but they also make the path to citizenship more challenging. Additionally, new citizens may be required to renounce their original nationality, with few exceptions. This policy aims to solidify migrants' commitment to Dutch society, but may also discourage highly skilled migrants from settling in the Netherlands due to the increased difficulty of obtaining citizenship. Family reunification and stricter rules for refugees. Impact on lives. The government's decision to tighten family reunification rules, requiring recognized refugees to wait at least 2 years before bringing family members to the country, adds another layer of difficulty for asylum seekers. The requirement for adequate housing and a stable income presents additional hurdles, especially in a country facing a housing shortage. These measures are intended to reduce the perceived burden on social services, but they also prolong the separation of families and may cause psychological harm. Critics argue that the policy prioritizes deterrence over humanitarian considerations, placing the Netherlands at odds with international human rights standards. Addressing labor migration, restricting low-wage employment. As part of the new policy changes, the government seeks to limit low-wage labor migration, focusing on reducing the exploitation of migrant workers. By restricting access to low-paying jobs and emphasizing participation in the Dutch labor market, the government aims to encourage residents, including family migrants, to integrate more fully into society. The policy also includes combating poor working conditions for migrants, which have been a long-standing issue in sectors like agriculture and construction. Challenges with Ukrainian refugees shifting towards self-reliance. Ukrainian refugees who have fled conflict and sought asylum in the Netherlands are now being encouraged to become more self-reliant. The government has begun phasing out living allowances for refugees with adequate income and expects them to contribute to housing costs when possible. It also presents challenges for refugees who may still struggle to find stable employment or suitable housing. Future implications. Will the new asylum policy truly solve the crisis? The Dutch government's strict new asylum policies have set the stage for a significant transformation in how the country handles migration. However, the question remains whether these measures will actually resolve the so-called asylum crisis. The opt-out request from the EU Migration Pact and the introduction of emergency measures represent a shift towards a more insular approach to migration. Long-term success will depend on the implementation of these policies and the ability to balance border control with humanitarian obligations. As the Netherlands embarks on this new course, it must weigh the benefits of stricter controls against the potential for humanitarian fallout. Whether the government's measures will end the immigration crisis or merely change its appearance is a matter of debate. Thanks for tuning in to Beyond Border. If you found this video informative and want to stay updated on global issues like immigration, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring you the latest news and in-depth analysis from around the world. Turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest content. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next video.